Hello and welcome to Sunday Thoughts for Sunday the 18th of April. I hope you're all keeping okay and feeling a bit more positive after the announcement of some good news this week from Stormont about reopenings. Don't forget that our churches at Ardtrea Desertcreat are now open again on Sunday mornings. If you want to come along and join us and you feel it's safe to do so, we would love to see you. Ardtrea 10:30 and Desertcreat 12 o'clock. Bring your mask, sign in, wash your hands, do all the usual things that we have to do. We had this thought recently that it might be nice now and again on Sunday Thoughts to share some of our spring and summer colour from our gardens. Whether you've got a gorgeous, perfectly mown lawn, or whether you grow things in pots or hanging baskets, whether you work on an allotment, keep bees, or grow roses, whatever you happen to do in your garden, if you'd like to share it with us, we would love to see that. It would be a nice thing. And since we've been scattered together rather than gathered together for so long, it'd be really nice to see each other in gardens. So whether you're a church member or a neighbour or a friend or someone who follows us online and you grow lovely things in your garden that you'd be happy to share with us, let us know. And either you can send a video to us, or if needs, we can get someone out to you to take a few snaps of your garden. This morning we're thinking about faith and doubt and wrapping up that theme. I don't know if it's ever struck you that many significant stories in the Bible are set on a mountaintop. Even the Garden of Eden apparently was on a mountain. God gave Moses stone tablets on which were supposedly written the 10 Commandments on a mountain. Noah's Ark came to rest, you've guessed it, on a mountain. Jesus was transfigured on a mountain. Jesus was crucified on a hill. Jesus gave his final commission to his disciples to go into all the world and make disciples of all nations on a mountaintop. Makes me ask the question, what is it about mountains? I wonder, is it because when we're high on a mountain, it's easy to imagine that in some strange way heaven and earth are closer together? In his book on doubt, the writer John Ortberg points out that we venerate height. We need things or people to look up to. Height does something to us. We often speak about high ideals or maybe a high office or a high calling. I want to say two things to you this morning. Number one, the journey of faith for most of us probably begins with what we call a mountaintop experience. And number two, even though that is true, the life of faith that God calls us to is lived mostly in the valley and not on a mountain. It's mostly routine, and along the way we'll have struggles and we'll have doubts. When I think about my own life and how I started out as a follower of Jesus, I'm struck by the fact that there were several times when I had mountaintop experiences when I felt that God was particularly close. Maybe it was a scripture union camp or a special service, or being away in an event where the worship and sense of family was so strong that it really left a lasting impression. And at those times, faith can be born. Doubts would follow, but faith can be born. Some of you who are Christ followers can think of your own mountaintop experiences. Maybe it was the birth of a child. Maybe it was an experience in church. Maybe it was flying over the Andes, something from nature. But you can think of moments maybe when faith was born or strengthened. People come to faith in all kinds of ways too. Often on mountaintop experiences, sometimes even through tragedy. Stephen Nolan did a great program on telly this week called Finding Faith, where he spoke about finding faith with different people. Some of them found faith through difficult circumstances. But faith that changes us on the inside is more than just a head thing. It involves a response. It involves an opting in. In some ways, it's a bit like hang gliding. I actually don't like heights, so the thought of hang gliding makes me feel nearly sick. But imagine this scene. Your friend invites you to go hang gliding. You read up on it, you go to the courses, you learn all the facts. You learn about steering, how to avoid electricity pylons. You're taught how to land safely. You're told about the wings and the harnesses and the chances of something going wrong, which are about 1 in 1,000. And then the big day comes, you find yourself several hundred feet up a mountain, standing on the edge, looking down and thinking, why the heck did I ever agree to do this? And at that moment, before you commit to jumping off the mountain, you have doubts. Now, nothing has changed in terms of what you know. It's just human to doubt. And at that point, before you jump off the mountain, you have a choice to make, because there's no such thing as partly jumping off a mountain. If you want to fly in your hang glider, it's a leap of faith. You have some knowledge, you've got some training, but you've got to step out into the unknown. You've got to prove to yourself that the wings will hold you, or you stay stuck to the side of the mountain. For many of us, the journey of faith begins with a mountaintop experience of God, and making the start is as risky as jumping off to go hang gliding. Thought too in a moment that most of our life is actually spent in the valley. But first of all, here's a reading and an instrumental song that needs no introduction at all.
The reading is from Mark chapter 9, beginning at verse 14. Jesus heals a boy possessed by an impure spirit. When they came to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them, and the teachers of the law arguing with them. As soon as all the people saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with wonder and ran to greet him. "What are you arguing with them about?" he asked. A man in the crowd answered, "Teacher, I brought you my son, who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not." "You unbelieving generation," Jesus replied, "how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." So they brought him. When the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into a convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long has he been like this?" "From childhood," he answered. "It has often thrown him into fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." "If you can," said Jesus, "everything is possible for one who believes." Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." When Jesus saw that a crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the impure spirit. "You deaf and mute spirit," he said, "I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." The spirit shrieked, convulsed him violently, and came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many said, "He's dead." But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him to his feet, and he stood up. After Jesus had gone indoors, his disciples asked him privately, "Why couldn't we drive him out?" He replied, "This kind can only come out by prayer."
Okay, then here's the second thought and final thought for this morning. For all of us, mountaintop experiences happen now and then, but for most of us, life is mostly routine. It is lived mostly in the valley, and sometimes in the valley we will have doubts and uncertainties, and our faith can be a little bit iffy. I don't think anyone lives a life where they're having mountaintop experiences all the time. If they are, I think they're probably living in La La Land. I always smile though whenever I find faith in unexpected places or in the lives of unexpected people. You find that in the Bible too though. You find Jesus responding to iffy faith, and I've spoken about that before. I love the stories where Jesus responds to the requests of people who showed faith but they weren't quite sure. They weren't 100% committed. There's a great story in Mark chapter 9 that has a mountaintop, a valley, and a man with very iffy faith. Jesus goes up a mountain with three friends, Peter, James, and John. And as they're there, Jesus' appearance changes before them. The word the Gospels use is the word transfigured. Basically, he glows, and they get some kind of an insight as to who he really is. And a voice from heaven says, "This is my Son, whom I love. Listen to him." So this is God really close for these friends of Jesus. This is as spiritual, as wow, as it will get in the whole of their lives. A short time later, though, they come down the mountain into the valley. And there they discover the other disciples having an argument with a father whose son has been sick. And the other disciples had tried to help, but with no success. So Jesus steps in and asks the father of the boy, how long has he been like this? And the dad says, since childhood. And then the dad shows iffy faith. And I love that expression because it's true of all of us. Our faith can be iffy. The dad says to Jesus, if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. This is faith as small as a mustard seed. It's not completely convinced. It believes, but it also doubts. It hopes, but it also fears. It asks, but it also worries. If you can do anything, have pity on us. And Jesus responds by saying, if. And I can see a twinkle in his eye. And then he adds these lovely words, everything is possible for the one who believes. And the dad says very quickly, I believe. And then the doubts kick in again and he says, I believe, help me overcome my unbelief. I trust, but I don't. I hope, but I fear. All mixed in together. Here's iffy faith, partly believing, partly doubting. And isn't that the way faith is for many of us? Jesus hears though. He sees the Father's iffy faith and he heals his son. Jesus invites us to a life of faith, trusting him for forgiveness, trusting that in him we'll have a life worth living, trusting that he'll lead us and guide us through this life and beyond. It's a life of adventure that has to begin with a leap of faith. There will be some days that will be like mountaintop days when God seems really close. But most days will be routine or ordinary, where our prayer will be, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief.